I was coming out of projects where the tone was very, very serious. And when we work on these big games, it's 4 years of your life on a specific genre, in a specific tone. So coming out of something that was more dark and then being able to work on something like The Guardians where it's lighthearted and we get to be funny and we get to tell jokes. The energy of the characters is constantly very, very upbeat. So it was just refreshing to know that we were shifting into something that was going to be completely different and more an opportunity to explore humor and being able to make players smile and laugh. For me, what stands out and what was interesting to me was being able to write for a game where it's an ensemble cast and it's 5 characters on the screen at all times, and then the dynamic that gets created between them. For me, that was very different. I was used to working on games where it's one primary character and you're writing for that character and you get into that character's mind. Here, it's the group dynamic. So there were challenges with that, but it was also very, very just exciting. There's energy that gets created from working with characters, constantly playing off of each other. Very, very early on in production, one of the first tasks I had was writing the audition scripts for the characters. It almost felt like a silly exercise at first because you associate the characters with very well-known voices and actors already. And there's already so many Guardians scripts out there. You can just use them to cast whoever you want to cast. But we went through the exercise of writing audition scripts because first we had to prove to ourselves and to Marvel that we could write the characters. And also because we wanted to put our own spin on them. And we wanted to show and start figuring out what is it about these characters that's going to be different in our interpretation of them. And so the audition scripts were the first step of doing that. And then as we started writing the scripts, we had a good sense of who the characters were from the perspective of Marvel and established lore. But more and more we started discovering who they are for us and how they develop and change over the course of the adventure. At the beginning, when we started writing our version of the Guardians, we came up with a list of key traits for each of them. It was our way of trying to crystallize who they are. And then after that, we created charts of affinities, just to better understand how the different Guardians, based on their traits, interact with each other and react to each other. Who's a more natural fit, who is always going to be antagonistic with the other. And so we had that kind of like base from which to start about who the characters are themselves, but also who they are in relation to each of the others. And then I think when you're working on a video game that's as big, what's really exciting is realizing that every dialogue isn't just about putting a check mark next to each of those traits and affinities. It's also about challenging them and undermining them. I think what makes us people is that we don't always act in the way that people think we're expected to act. People have the ability to surprise you, even if you think you know them really well. And I think you spend so much time with the Guardians in our game, they're going to surprise you. And I think that's what makes them jump off the screen and feel like they're real characters. If I take one very concrete example, there's a mission in our game where you spend the time on a planet that Rocket really, really hates. He doesn't like the environment, he doesn't like the weather, he doesn't like the mission they're on. He's angry at Star-Lord at this point. And so we have big scenes that convey Rocket's emotional state of mind. But then we also have little opportunities in the game. If the player decides to explore a little bit to the right and finds a little cave, he'll find himself in the cave with Rocket alone. And what you realize is that the person that Rocket is when the entire group is there isn't necessarily the same person that Rocket is when you're alone with him. And you get to explore different facets of the characters depending on who's in the room at the time and what is their particular environment. And you start realizing the character traits are always there, but there's different variations of them, and the characters are constantly developing and evolving and showing you different sides of themselves. I think as a writing team, we sort of embodied the spirit of lovable dysfunction. Once a week, we would read to each other whatever we were working on. We would do the different voices ourselves or with other people in the studio, and we just sort of, without even necessarily being conscious of it, I think we kind of became the Guardians in terms of feeling like misfits, feeling ragtag, feeling like we were trying to pull off something against all odds.
Best narrative goes to Marvel.
We did it, y'all!
Yay!
Are you doing that anyone earlier?